You'll walk on this street and be reminded of how Dr. King helped to open up the doors of opportunity to allow for a more level playing field with the same set of rules in the many arenas of society. And even when you go to light, gas, and water to pay your light bill, you'll consider how Dr. King's light continues to shine in Tunisia and Egypt and Libya and Yemen, all over the world, where people have sought the right to determine their own destiny, free of oppression and free of tyranny. And so we rename this street, we recommit to his values, we redouble our efforts for prosperity for all. This is not an avenue with a dead end. It's a highway that further affirms that we are connected with those all over the nation and the world who are working to apply Dr. King's principles in everyday life. God bless you all. God bless the memory of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Thank you.
And Mayor, that's your entrance song, Mayor Luttrell. It is my pleasure to bring our county mayor to give a word of acknowledgement and praise. Thanks for your leadership, sir. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you.
Well, thank you, Ron, and to the 100 black men of Memphis, thank you all for your diligent work that has brought this to pass. And who's to say that there can't be a strong ministry through music? You all of that, thank you all so much for your wonderful, wonderful renditions today. Also to Councilman Ford, to Berlin Boyd. Now, Berlin Boyd is a relative newcomer to our city, but hasn't he had a profound impact on this city while he's been here? Thank you, Berlin, for your wise counsel on issues like this today, but also your personal friendship to me. And certainly, Mayor Wharton, thank you for your involvement in making this day special for what it is. A man that I've enjoyed working with in so many ways, partnering for the betterment and the good of our entire community. You know, I think each of us, depending upon our age, when we think of November 11th, that brings to mind a particular historical event. December 7th, there are members in this audience today that remember vividly the day, December 7th. November 22nd, another memorable day in our history, and certainly April 4th. These are days where, if you were living at that time, you can vividly remember the exact moment that you heard the historical event of that day. I think back on April 4th, a young college student preparing for an exam the next day, in the stunned silence that was pervasive across my dormitory when the word came down that Dr. King had been killed. It was not the stunned silence that caught my attention that I remember so vividly today, as it was the comments of one student that will live with me for the rest of my life. And it was not a complimentary comment. It was a comment of derision. It was a comment of joy. In all those 44 years since then, I have reflected upon that incident. I can describe for you very well that student, one of those memories that remains with me. But as I reflect back on that day, it also reminds me of the obligation that we have. Because today is more than just a day of dedication of a street, but it's a day of remembering what our responsibilities are and what our requirements will be for the future. Because we, those of us that look like me and look like you, are not the future. The future is what sits in front of us here. And when we reflect on the events of April 4th and how it impacted us, we should also use that as a reminder of what our responsibilities are for the future. Anytime that I need a little bit of encouragement or a reminder of the responsibilities that I have, I simply put a copy of Dr. King's memorable manuscript, Letter from the Birmingham Jail. And if you haven't read Letter from the Birmingham Jail lately, pick that up and read it. Because it talks about such things as injustice for one is injustice for all. It talks about people of good intentions without action behind those good intentions. It talks about a faith community that is committed to God, that's not committed to social action. Those are the things that we as adults must remember as we look to our children in the future. Because these children here were not around on April 4th, 1968. All they know about Dr. King is what they read and what they hear. And what they know, and what they read and what they hear is depending upon us and our ability to be leaders for this next generation. We have a profound responsibility. We're here today to dedicate a street, but we're also here to rededicate ourselves for the future and all that it holds in store for this community and for these young children that will be the leaders of tomorrow. Let us take that pledge, let us take that challenge, let us leave here committed and dedicated to the future of our community and everything that Martin Luther King stood for. God bless you.
Thank you, Mayor Luttrell. Thank you so very much. I'll hear about that one later. Mayor Luttrell, we appreciate your leadership. You know, I have Mayor Warden passed on this task of acknowledging elected officials. Wow. And I'm just going to do something just a little differently. If you'll just look, I've noticed so many of our wonderful elected officials and friends. If you'll just look next to you, I promise you, you will see an elected official. And let's give the elected officials a big hand for being here. But I believe, and before I do take on that challenge, Ms. Warren, I just have a wonderful view behind you, and Councilman Ford behind you, and Steve Webster behind you. I see a very beautiful picture of Memphis, Tennessee, and Shelby County. Let's give Memphis and Shelby County a big hand. You know, when you look out and see such a diverse crowd, business leaders, people from all walks of life who came out on this beautiful day to celebrate a leader, someone that we cherish in this community, it just gives you a good feeling about Memphis, and it really says that we're on the move and we're on the right track. Since I won't be able to call every elected official name, once again I want to thank Councilman Boyd and Dr. Councilman Edmund Ford, but a special acknowledgement to their colleagues. Will the members of the Memphis City Council please stand so we can recognize you, and I will recognize each and every one of them by name. I see my good friend Councilwoman Wanda Halbert, Councilman Harold Collins, Councilman Myron Laurie, Councilman Jim Strickland. Do we have any? Okay, Councilman, my good friend, Councilman Joe Brown. You know I wouldn't forget you. And I saw Lee Harris. I know Councilman Lee Harris is in the back. There's Councilman Harris on the fire truck. Anybody else? But I think it's really, Mayor Harrington, important to acknowledge the council members, because without those colleagues of Councilman Boyd and Councilman Ford, this would not be possible. Give them a big hand for having the vision, the strength, and the wisdom to make this happen. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention one of the executives from Electrolux, Jacob Burrows, who's going to bring jobs to this community. Reverend Jackson is here today to celebrate with us on this momentous occasion. Thanks for being here, Jacob. I know the mayors are happy you're here, and we're waiting on those jobs. At this point, we're going to have 2-minute reflections from some very special Memphians, and I think the printer overprinted or misprinted on one, so we'll add another. But at this time, I'm going to ask Miss Carolyn Hardy, a tremendous and I'm sorry. Okay. Lord, thank you, Leroy. Kurt, my man, how you doing? Let us just take a brief moment here to recall just before Dr. King was killed. He said these words to Jesse Jackson: "Tell Ben to play Precious Lord and play it pretty." Here to play Precious Lord is Grammy Award-winning and great Memphian, none other than Kirk Whalum. Let's give Kirk a big hand. Our own Kirk Whalum. you so very much for that. We're going to keep the program moving, and I had a change of heart. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the elected officials who did show and that I do see. Chairman of the County Commission, Sidney Chisholm. Thank you for being here, sir. I couldn't miss his hat as the young people moved by. I saw Judge Jane Chandler. Good seeing you, Judge. I see Representative G.A. Hardaway skipping out on session all the way from Nashville. I see former Commissioner Deidre Malone, former Councilman Shep Wilburn. Did I forget anyone? And County Commissioner Henry Brooks. I see you, Ms. Brooks. Tamika Hart, school board member. Commissioner Steve Mulroy, thank you for being here, sir. Dr. Frida Williams, thank you for being here, Dr. Williams. Chairman Billy Orville, thank you for being here, Mr. Chairman. I saw you earlier. I knew I'd get help if I asked for it. Now we're going to keep the program moving. And coming up, oh, I'm sorry, my main man. The mayor, the former mayor of the great city of Memphis, and the former superintendent, Dr. Willie Harrington. Let's give him a big hand. Doc, I saw you slip in on me. And now we will, Ms. Hardy, and I think we're going to hear from Dr. Harrington here shortly. Thank you for being here. This is one of our leading business women in this Memphis community. Let's give her a big warm welcome.
Thank you. First, I'd like to start out, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Carolyn Chisholm Hardy from Orange Mound, Tennessee. I'm the seventh of 16 children. My mom, bless her soul, went through that 16 times. I only had 3 kids of my own. I'm the former owner of the Coors facility on Rains Road. And Berlin asks that I share with you the impact that Dr. King had on my life. Well, think about it. When a lady has 16 children, you tend to expect her daughter to have somewhere in that neighborhood maybe 18 children. You didn't expect her to, pursue an education and pursue a business of their own. So I want to talk briefly about Dr. King's impact on my life, and I will tell you that it's almost too numerous to count. Dr. King's demand for equality opened doors that allowed me and my sisters and brothers and my children to be educated in any institution in the United States or international. Dr. King's demand for equal opportunity made it possible for me to become a CPA and a top professional at major companies, as well as to own my own company. Dr. King created an expectation that I would be treated equally and fairly like any other American. But are we there yet? No, but thanks to Dr. King, he left a world in a place that allows me to move forward. Is it perfect? No way. But we each have a responsibility to not squander away our opportunities and freedoms. We must challenge the status quo, not take no for an answer, or even get deflated because of rejection. If we need positive approval to move forward, forget it. It's not going to happen. Are we there yet? No, but we're better than we were in 2011. 2012 is an even better place, and I expect a lot more out of 2013, thanks to Dr. King. Dr. King, thank you for providing gifts that keeps on giving. I'd like to thank the mayors. I'd like to thank the city of Memphis for allowing me to be successful. I'd like to thank you for allowing me to be successful. And most of all, I'd like to thank Dr. King. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Hardy. We appreciate all that you do in this community. We're going to keep the program moving. Coming up next is a gentleman who's no stranger to this community. He's the pastor of Annisdale Cherokee Baptist Church. He's the president of SCLC, none other than the Reverend Dr. Dwight Montgomery. He's going to give a few brief words of reflection. Dr. Montgomery is also a board member of the National Civil Rights Museum.
Thank you very much, Brother Red Wing, and protocol having been established, and certainly for these distinguished dignitaries, I am certainly pleased that this ceremony is being held, and I know that Dr. King would be extremely pleased for the renaming of Linden after him. However, Dr. King was one who spoke truth to power, and I know that although he would be pleased that the street is being named after him, he would be displeased as it relates to the discussions of privatizing the sanitation department. Because when he came to Memphis, he came standing up for economic justice for all people, and he came to stand up for economic justice for the sanitation workers. To eliminate that which he stood for would be a dishonor. But on a positive note, I am grateful for this program. Dr. King deserves it, and I thank those who put it together.
Thank you, Dr. Montgomery. Next on the program is a great pastor in his own right. A man who sat on the city council during the strike. Someone who was strong, steadfast, and helped lead this city to unity. Someone who's meant a lot to me personally. A man that represents us all, the Reverend James Nettles, pastor of Mount Vernon Baptist Church, on Third. He's a leader. He's been here with us a long time. He's been a lot to us. Thank you, Pastor.
Today's a new day. There is no sunshine.
That's a good introduction there, both in words and music. Brother Ron, Red Wing, president of our 100 Brothers, and although protocol has been established, I have to give special honor to both of our mayors, Mayor Warden and First Lady Warden, Mayor Luttrell, and my own member of my own congregation, former Mayor Willie, Dr. Harrington. I have to give him special honor. And I have to also introduce a new man in my life. Sitting beside him a few moments ago, Dr. Jesse Jackson just honored me as being his father. And I told him I'm certainly old enough to be your father. And I accepted with honor. Ladies and gentlemen, and to these two young men who are responsible for this grand occasion here today, Councilman Boyle and Councilman Dr. Edmund Ford, my hat is off to you. April the 4th, 1968, about 5 o'clock in the evening, became one of the saddest hours in my life. When after 9 members of the 1968 City Council had passed a resolution to give the sanitation workers everything that they were asking for, and what Dr. Martin Luther King came to Memphis to fight for. And after we had finished that meeting in the Claridge Hotel room on the 9th floor, we received a call to say that Dr. Martin Luther King had just been shot. Because I went into hysteria, I said they'd killed my man. And they consoled me as much as they could until he got to the hospital. And then, upon the arrival of the hospital, they said that he was dead on arrival. That was the first great sad tragedy for that day. Such a tragedy that wrecked all of my thoughts. But a few minutes after they announced that he was dead. 2 of those 9 council persons who were in the room had approved that resolution. They backed down and said, we can't take this resolution to the council because our constituents will feel that we are acquiescing under pressure. Therefore, we will not support it on tomorrow, which meant that if we didn't have those 9 council persons backing that resolution, giving the sanitation workers all that they were asking for and everything that Dr. King came to Memphis to fight for, it could be vetoed by the then Mayor Lowe. That was the second great tragedy in my life. But today, April 4th, 2012, I stand here on the corner of a street that is named now Dr. Martin Luther King Avenue. This is a great and moment. Unlike 1968, which was the saddest hour in my life, this is one of the happiest hours in my life. It ought to be a happy moment in your life as well, because he deserved all that we can give, all that we can say about him. He deserved that and more. And we're grateful for these council persons who made this possible. We tried it in 1971 and it didn't work. We were only able to get a thoroughfare, 240, running from Brooks Road to the exit going to Nashville. But that is not as important as what is happening here today, because it is in the heart of a city where Martin Luther King's life was snuffed away. And we contribute this to him as an honor, and it certainly redeems Memphis for having been the place. It redeems Memphis for having been the place where one of the greatest men on earth, gave his life for the freedom of all of us, not just sanitation workers, but for all of the people of this city and all the people of the world. Congratulations, and God bless every one of you.